Hi everybody, welcome to or back to Building the Bookshelf. We've had a couple of memoirs on the channel lately. That's kind of fun. I always like to hear about people's life stories and what brought them here and there and whatnot. So today we are talking about a fan favorite, Cynthia Erivo. I know she's had her extra time in the limelight with Wicked as of recently. But my gosh, is there anything that this woman cannot do? She sings, she dances, she acts, she writes. She does all of the things. Gorgeous pictures on both sides of this here. So this is her memoir, but I didn't read it so much as a memoir of just more of, obviously she's just scratched the surface of what she's going to do, I think, personally in her career. I don't think that this is, so many times memoirs are at the end of a career or end of a life. I don't think that this is her case at all. I think she's just kind of documenting where she is at this point in time and wants to remember kind of what got her here and maybe reflect back on that sometime in the future when she needs some of those tools to get her to the next steps. Wicked is the most recent work that everyone is familiar with her in. I know she just finished a stint in Broadway with Dracula, so it's that she is all over the place. So what I really like about this book is how it's structured. It's broken up into very short segments. So if you don't have a ton of time to read, if you're just trying to, read your 5 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day before bed or whatnot, this can very easily be done with that. This does not have to be, a huge 500-page commitment. So they're very short. Each section is titled by kind of what some of the takeaways are going to be for each section. But she also breaks it up like she's running a marathon. At the time that she was writing this, she was training for the London Marathon. And so she breaks up the first third of it. The first 10 miles, you run with your head. The second 10 miles, you run with your legs. The last 6 miles, you run with your heart. And so those are the topics and kind of how she talks about these different phases of her life. So as a runner, I appreciated that. But I think that it's also nice to just have little nuggets that you can go back and visit to, or even honestly, looking at the titles, I do this with books sometimes. I'm doing this with Pivot Year right now, where you just open what the titles of the different sections are and you pick what speaks to you on that day. And maybe it's just a couple of pages and just kind of resonate with that. I think there are takeaways for everybody, regardless of whether or not you're an actor or singer or runner. There's things that you can find in here that everybody can use. My favorite chapter was Decide It and Let It Be So. Prove yourself to yourself. I think there's so many times that we are looking for approval from outside sources, validation from outside sources. And while those things are nice, if we don't receive that, that doesn't mean that we can't go forward. So it's like, prove yourself to yourself, right? It's the same, philosophy of running. I mean, unless you're, yes, some people are very competitive with their times and whatnot, but there's only going to be 3 people that are on the podium, right? So really you're running against yourself. You're trying to improve yourself and beat your last best time and whatnot. Not necessarily against somebody else. So prove yourself to yourself. I think that was a really good takeaway. There obviously are stories in here about, sometimes discrimination or difficulties that she had trying to break into the industry that she is very open about and, breaking just some of the stereotypes as she continues to do, whether it's gender stereotypes or what have you. She, I think, is pretty unapologetically herself, which is not an easy thing to do, especially if you have a little bit of a platform, and that opens you up to a lot of criticism from a lot of other people who are not walking the shoes that you are in. And, that's why it's called Simply More. It is written for people who want to be a little bit more than they are. So that was a question, the takeaway that I had is, where can you be simply more in your life, and not just for other people, but for yourself? First and foremost, for yourself. If there's something that is just knocking on your heart that just will not go away, how is it something that you might be able to act on? And it may not be changing your life 100%, but it can just be making little steps along the way. And I think even just with how the structure of the book is, with all of these little chapters and little segments and little moments and little experiences, that's part of it, that it's these little moments that build on each other. It doesn't have to be this huge, break like Wicked. Yes, that if that happens, that's amazing, but it's also everything that led up to Wicked, and not just that one moment that is the sole definition of everything that she is as a person. And I think that's a really beautiful thing to also keep perspective on, because it's like a marathon, it's going to end at some point in time. And yes, you're running on that high, but then what is the next thing, so that you're not just completely devastated? The one thing you've been working so hard for is over, because there's another marathon ahead. So would love to hear what you guys think if you give it a try.